All right, welcome everybody to our March webinar, Demystifying Metadata. I, for one, am very excited to unravel that mystery. Before we get started, just a few announcements. As always, this webinar is being recorded and you'll be able to access it after it ends. We'll send you a link once the webinar is done. If you have a question, please post it in the Q&A section rather than the chat. The chat is just a place for you guys to kind of talk back and forth. It is visible to everybody, so keep your snide comments to yourself because everybody will see them. One new feature that Zoom has added is closed captioning. So if you look at your bottom menu, on the very right, you'll see an option that says live transcript. If you click that, you'll be able to see the captioning for the event. We've tested it out, it's really amazing. One last note, we'll be opening up nominations for the MBPR board coming up pretty soon here. So be on the lookout for an email sometime next month and be thinking about people or yourself if you're interested in being a part of the board. And lastly, we will be holding our internship fair as usual, not quite as usual, but it'll be a little different this year. So just be on the lookout for more information about that. And with that, I would like to introduce our speaker, Margaret Harrison. She literally wrote the book on metadata, and she was kind enough to donate a copy to everybody who is attending today. So you should have received a link to download the free ebook. And she is the director of fulfillment solutions at Ingram Content Group, where she oversees account management, business development, catalog management, and client experience for print on-demand clients. Before joining Ingram in 2015, Margaret held roles at Oxford University Press and Overdrive. In addition to co-authoring her book, she lives in Nashville, Tennessee, where she's finishing her MBA degree and chasing after her 2 young sons. So please join me in welcoming Margaret, and we're so excited to hear what you have to say. At the end of Margaret's presentation, we'll allow 10 to 15 minutes for questions, so be thinking of those as you go. All right, and over to you, Margaret.
Wonderful. Thanks, Lauren. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. It is so exciting to be here. Thank you to all of you for the invitation and thank you for having me. Give me 1 second here while I get my presentation up and rolling, and we'll get started. All right, great. Okay, so this presentation is all about demystifying metadata. So if you've encountered metadata in your work or as an author or in any of your book work, you know that it can be a sort of intimidating thing. And so what we want to do today is to really dig in and really break this down into what is most relevant to help get the attention of your readers. And so we'll have a lot of fun today. I am going to keep an eye on the Q&A, but for the most part, I'm going to run through the content and then we will go through questions at the very end here. Okay, so let's get started. So what we're going to cover today, a lot of really good information. So to start, I always like to learn a little bit about who's in the audience. I think you already know a little bit about me. We're going to talk about we're going to start macro. So we're going to start big picture, what's happening in the industry. I think everyone knows that 2020 was actually a great year overall for book sales, and we saw some interesting trends emerge. But I want to talk specifically about what's happening in the world of online book sales, online search. So we're going to start there to kind of orient you and give you a good base layer. And then we're going to drill into some of the basics on metadata, and we'll go into some essentials and some top tips. This presentation is very oriented towards action. I want you all to leave here. Hopefully you've got a pen and paper handy. If not, no worries, this is being recorded. But I want you all to leave here with some very practical things you can take away, whether it's, understanding what's relevant. If you're at the sort of leadership level, maybe you don't roll up your sleeves and get into the metadata, but you should understand kind of what's relevant. But if you are someone that is actually creating metadata, this workshop is really for you, and there are going to be a lot of very practical tips that you can take away. Okay, so we're going to go through that. And then we will wrap up and do some Q&A here at the end. So Lauren gave an introduction, a little bit about me. In addition to my work in the book industry, I am a lifelong nerd. I'm so curious about the world around me. I love to read. I would say at this stage in my life, finishing my MBA, I definitely buy more books than I read. But I am someone that sort of lives and breathes books. And so I want to know a little bit about you. And so I'm going to launch this poll. And so please give me a sense of who you are. Do you come from a publishing house? Are you in marketing? Are you in production? Are you a student? Hats off to my fellow students out there. Are you with a distributor? Tell me a little bit about your role, and we'll keep this open. It looks like we've got about 50 responses so far. Let the last ones roll in here. Oh, good. Almost everyone responding. Great. All right. Okay, I'm going to end the poll and share the results. So this is great. So lots of folks from editorial out there. Welcome. Thank you for being here. A couple of authors, lots of people from marketing or production, operations, some entrepreneurs, maybe a one-woman or a one-man show out there. Thank you for being here. A student, I see you, and one from a distributor. This is great. So this really helps as we go through. I'll keep in mind, my guess is that many of you who are here are probably the ones doing the hard work, rolling up your sleeves and actually digging in and creating metadata. So that's great. If that doesn't describe you, don't worry, there is something in here for you. Okay, so let's get into it here. So we looked at where you're all from, what your backgrounds are, but in fact, did you know that all of you are marketers? Because the world of online book sales is all about marketing to readers, and you're doing that in a way that is different than has historically, been done. We used to have printed catalogs. We used to, focus on co-op and on bookstore placement. I actually run the division of Ingram that is focused on purely virtual inventory. So almost half of our print on demand business is now from publishers that actually don't publish traditionally stocked books. They are exclusively printed on demand. And what I love about that is it's such an empowering message for all of you, whether you are in editorial, marketing, production, you're an author. It means that the work that you do on metadata is incredibly important, and it actually can move real book sales. I mean, again, more than half of our print on demand business now is from these sort of non-traditional, whether it's author services, like Ingram Spark or KDP or Lulu or Blurb, or, any of the other independent publishers that, are just focusing on virtual inventory on a print on demand strategy. This presentation is for you. And the great news is that metadata can help you to reach your readers. All right. So now we're going to go over that sort of high level overview on what's happening in the industry here. And so to start, let's talk about searching. So in the last year, we saw a 50% increase in online searches for books, whether that was on Google or on Amazon. I mean, this is great news, right? We know that people are looking more than ever for content, and they're looking for it online. And so, how are they connecting those searches with your books? It's all about metadata, baby. And so they have lots of options. Readers have lots of options about where to go. This is some analysis that actually came from one of my brilliant colleagues. Pete McCarthy and Jess Johns. I put a little link that you can all access after this if you want to check out their detailed presentation on online marketing. For this today, don't worry about, paid search traffic backlinks. What I wanted to share though is there are lots of options and they serve different audiences, right? So Barnes and Noble, if you look at that blue line, which is search traffic, it's a pretty steady flow, right? Someone like Audible, huge surge, gift cards around the holidays, or people buying audiobooks in advance of the holidays to gift, audible.com, big holiday surge. Powell's, big surge around Black Lives Matter. Bookshop.org, big holiday surge. And so, when you look at consumer activity, each one of these online book selling sites, whether they're selling, digital, physical books, has really a different audience, and metadata is what helps us to reach those readers. And so as we go through today, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the different flavors, the nuances by book selling site, and talk a little bit about how to unlock some of those specific audiences. And so the last thing I want to talk about is just how influential metadata is. I mean, we've already talked a little bit about just what a huge role it can play for publishers in reaching readers. But looking at this is sort of online shopping as a whole. Okay, so this is not just books, but if you look at how consumers are searching for content, again, I think when we do think specifically about books, we think about in the past, recommendations, we thought, when we think back, to Goodreads and how important, recommendations once were. What we're realizing now in the world of online search is that really it's all about metadata. So if you look over here on the right at what's more influential, it's product specs. So that's all about what we're going to cover today: your description, your title, your age range, your contributor bio. It's price, it's availability, it's looking at comparisons across retailers. All of that is powered by metadata. It's powered by you. And so again, I just think this is such an empowering moment for publishing, where you really hold the keys to unlock those sales with your readers. And so there is so much that you can do to improve your odds. All right, so now we're going to get into some metadata basics. What we talk about when we talk about metadata, well, really it's two things. It's discovery, how readers find your book, and this is kind of a marketing term, so bear with me if you're not a marketer, although by the end of this you will all be marketers. Conversion. So conversion is taking that reader from a browser to a buyer. It's converting that interaction with your reader to become a customer, to become a book buyer. And your metadata is incredibly powerful in that conversion process. And so metadata sort of leads the customer all the way through the journey. So, 4 components here. So starting with search. So metadata is about anticipating what your readers want. What are they searching for? What are they typing in to that search box, whether it's on powells.com, whether it's on bookshop.org, amazon.com, target.com, walmart.com, wherever they're searching for your content or for books that they want to buy. You want to be anticipating what they're typing into the search box. You need to connect with your readers. So they will make a decision to buy based on that interaction that they have on the page. And sure, some other factors may come in. Maybe their friend did mention a book, recommendations certainly are out there. Maybe they read about it online, but what you're showing them on the page is what really matters. And again, we're going to talk about how each retailer differs a little bit. And as you get into your Metadata Essentials book, we have a lot more data in there about sort of, what each retailer is showing. So I encourage you to check that out because it will help you to make that connection with your reader wherever they're shopping. The next step in a reader's journey is they're kind of verifying. So they are on that website and they want to know, is this legit, right? So that's one thing about online shopping, especially in the world of books. There are a lot of choices out there. So as a savvy reader, as a savvy consumer, I'm checking out that page to say, okay, is this legit? Is this a high quality book? And one of the great signals to a reader is your metadata. And you can do things like formatting your description, bolding that first sentence, maybe even using bullets in your description. You've got a nice, concise title, subtitle. All of these are signals to a reader to say, this is a high quality book that is worth your investment. And finally, that investment, that purchase. And so they're factoring in, as we saw, in our little, spirograph chart a few moments ago, they are considering price. They're looking at format. They're looking at, is this valuable? Is this worth my money? Okay, so that's a little bit about the online shopping journey. And so, when it comes to your metadata, I think a lot of times we get caught up in the kind of tech part of metadata. So maybe, when you've thought about metadata, maybe you've thought you needed to be an expert in Onyx, which is the XML format. That's sort of the industry standard for passing metadata back and forth. But at the end of the day, metadata is really not data at all. It is first and foremost, it's marketing, right? It's talking directly to your readers. It's not for you, it's not for your back cover. It's for your fans. It's for your readers out there. And it's that, again, it's that connection with with your audience, with your readers. And so now we're going to start to get into some of the essentials about, actually creating that winning metadata. So here comes the fun part. All right. So again, what is metadata? It is anticipating what your reader wants. They are in an online bookstore, they're thinking about, they're browsing, maybe they don't know what they want. And so again, metadata helps you to make that connection. And there are some really specific ways that we can make that connection. And I want to preface this by saying that these essential attributes, I mean, they may seem like no-brainers, but you would not believe how many people ask me about, these obscure long tail, fields that they might find in their metadata system or that they might have heard about through BISG or that's the Book Industry Study Group that, sort of the curator of our metadata fields. But really, I have great news for you, which is this is what matters. It's the basics. Okay, and you're probably already working on this, but it is all about quality over quantity. If you can focus on these 7 components that I have here, this is really going to help you to deliver results. It's a concise, unique title. It's matching the contributors that are on your cover with what's in your metadata and creating a selling bio. It's a robust description. I talked a little bit about that bolded headline at the very beginning. Series is so important. It's more important on some sites like Barnes and Noble than others. We'll get into that a little bit more here. Subjects. So this is your BISAC category, maybe your thema code if you're selling outside the US. But we want these to be very, very specific. We want you to be selling in as many formats as possible, and ensuring that you're linking your metadata. And then keywords. I'm going to spend a little time here towards the end talking about keywords. There is a whole lot. It tends to be the thing that I have the most questions on. So I like to spend a little time on it. It is really important in an online selling environment. You may be brand new to keywords. Not to fret, we will really break it down, okay? So I'm gonna go into each one of these attributes now in some detail, okay? So here we go. So let's start with title and author. So your title and subtitle, I like to keep that to about 80 characters. The reason for that is it will show up on your phone. It will be a great experience for your mobile shopper, for your reader that's shopping on a mobile device. So here's an example. I mean, 80 characters, if you're wondering what that is. So here's the step-by-step Instant Pot Cookbook, 100 simple recipes for spectacular results. I think it's actually 81 characters, but it's very close. Okay, so that's, you still, there's plenty of space to make, you know, a nice meaty title and subtitle there, but that's all about mobile optimization. And then this is something that seems like it makes sense, but you'd be surprised at how many publishers miss this. Your contributor name and your title in your metadata needs to match what's on the cover. So, you know, Jennifer Armentrout uses her middle initial. She uses a period after it. And so all of her metadata includes that middle initial with a period. But what you run the risk if you're not doing that, if you're forgetting that middle initial or you're inconsistent, something that is really vital in online sales, but particularly with Barnes and Noble, Amazon, where you have cross, you know, linking or searching across author, where you can click on that author name and pull up all of the titles that are by that author. If there is a mismatch, they won't be able to make that link. And so this is a great chance for you to connect related works, or works by that same author, I should say. And something as, you know, seemingly insignificant as forgetting that period at the end of the middle initial can actually break that linking. So if, especially if you're someone that has multiple books by the same author in your house, in your publishing house, or for my author friends out there, you know, make sure that you are being consistent. And, you know, I would say here, even if I would make an exception that if you have authors that have been writing over a long span of time, maybe, and so maybe Jennifer Armentrout's first books, you know, maybe she wasn't using the L back in the old days and now she's updated. I would say to make an exception there, you know, in the metadata, use that Jennifer L, even if it's not on the cover, because what you're trying to achieve here is to create that linking first and foremost. Okay, so that's really, really important. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about your author bios. Now, Barnes and Noble made a change recently where they are no longer sharing contributor bios, actually. And so, you know, this is becoming, I think, a little less relevant on certain book sites, but, you know, you still have, certainly Amazon has moved this down on the page, but it is still being displayed. And there are plenty of opportunities for this to see the light of day. So with your contributor bio, I said a few moments ago that this needs to be a selling bio. So what do I mean by that? Well, when we talk about a selling bio, let's look at this actual example from our lovely friend Warren Easley, who is the author of the Cal Claxton Oregon Mysteries. So this is a pretty good bio. Okay, I like a few things about it. Raise your hand if you see the raise hand button at the bottom. Raise your hand if you like this bio, if you think it's a good bio. Let's see. Okay, we've got, okay, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, we've got some fans here. So yeah, I think this is a pretty good bio. Thank you, everyone. You can lower your hands. This is a pretty good bio. There's one thing though that I really don't like about this bio, and this is really important. I see this mistake all the time. What I don't like about this, yes, Jenna, that's right. No links. No links. For more, visit warreneasley.com. So where am I as a reader in this journey? So I'm on, you know, I'm on the product detail page at bookshop.org, and I am making my decision. I'm doing my homework. I'm reading all about my buddy Warren here. Oh, he tutors GED students, you know, and we know that readers more than ever, online shoppers are making sort of moral, you know, they're buying into the kinds of behavior that they like, right? So I go, oh, Warren sounds great, but oh, he tutors GED students. Oh, I'd love to learn more about that. So I visit warreneasley.com, and 15 minutes later, I'm in the rabbit hole of his family photos. He's also really into fishing. I am just looking, learning all about his life. Well, guess what I forgot to do? I forgot to buy the book. And so we don't want to distract our readers. We do want them to connect with our authors, and that's a very important part of the marketing journey, but not right now. Right now, it's time for them to buy the book. And we want them to connect with Warren. You go down that rabbit hole, you go into those vacation photos, because that will make you more likely to buy books later on. You can go way back into, it's like an 8-book series now, the Cal Claxton Mysteries. But in this moment, we don't want them to visit warreneasley.com. Okay, so let's look at another example here. So this is Leah Johnson. So this is interesting. This bio is from bookshop.org, but she actually updated her bio on Amazon. So if you don't know this name, Leah Johnson is the blockbuster author of You Should See Me in a Crown. And this is a YA book that just completely blew up. So this bio is really interesting, because this is like, I read this and it takes me back to my days, my college days working on like narrative nonfiction. This is like a nerdy, like MFA kind of bio, right? My lit people out there, you know what I'm talking about, right? So who is this for? I mean, this bio to me is like very intellectual. It's telling me all about her credentials, but this is a YA book. So so this might appeal to me as, a fan of, of literary fiction, but this particular bio to me does not scream like blockbuster, YA novel, right? And so again, when you're writing the bio, you want to think about making that conversion, keeping them on the page, not going to warreneasley.com. But you also want to, you are selling, this author's brand to your audience. And so you want to think about, what impression are you leaving with them? And always, is this driving towards conversion? All right. That's all we're going to say about contributor bio. Let's move on to one of the most important attributes that we have, which is the description field. So we're going to spend a little bit of time here. So this is the most important part. And I kind of break it down into 3 sections. So first, you're going to have your elevator pitch. And I love to see a little bit of, and this is, okay, I'm going to do some nerdy talk here. I do like a little bit of HTML formatting. So all this is just a little B tag at the front, a little B tag at the end. You can find out more details on how to do this in the Metadata Essentials book. But so you're basically bolding that first, 1 to 2 sentences, and then you're putting in a paragraph break. Carol, thank you for the question. That I do like the P tag rather than the break. So I like that P tag. It's also fewer characters. So, you go, Carol. You put those P tags in. And so so after your bolded headline, you are then going to move into the exposition. So this is, the detailed and clear description of your title. And again, Carol is putting in those P tags. I love it. You're going to use those paragraph breaks for emphasis. And that's just that little P with the brackets is just including those paragraphs in your description. It makes it so much cleaner for the reader. And we're going to look at a few examples here that make, some nice use of that, those paragraph breaks and some of that formatting. Okay, and then you're going to end with a close. Why should they buy? A cliffhanger, totally okay. What's going to happen next? And what will the reader get out of the book? All right, oops, wrong one here. All right, so a few examples. So this is our friend Jennifer L. Armentrout again. And so here's her description. And so I wanted to show the bnn.com description. If you haven't checked out their website in a while, it's a little bit different. They've done these 2 columns, which I actually don't love, but it is a way to get more content across the page. So what Jennifer and her team have done here, and this is pretty common, I see this a lot with erotica, with romance, they do these sort of like, these little ellipses at the beginning, these headers. Okay, so, a maiden, a duty, a kingdom. I love this, right? So this like draws you right in. You're going, woo, I'm reading through the description. This is great. But right at the top, what they have, and they've used bold and italics. I don't love that combo. You're welcome to do it. But I prefer just bolding because I think it's a little easier to read. But so they've got that bolded headline right at the top. They're effective use of paragraph breaks. The only thing that's really missing, and so do you notice here how part of the description is cut off? So it's a little longer than I would like. And I think if they, maybe had a little less white space, you could have, gotten that closed. But I mean, Jennifer Armentrout's a big enough name where, she's probably already hooked her readers by virtue of her brand. But so this is pretty good. I'd give this, a solid A. And as descriptions go. So let's look next at some nonfiction. So this is the example that I used in the title. So this is the Instant Pot Cookbook. And so right at the top, I've got that bolded headline, which I love to see. And they're touting this as a national bestseller. Okay, then we've got a paragraph break talking about Jeffrey Eisner, who wrote he has the Pressure Luck Cookbook, and he has the website, the YouTube channel. Okay, then we get a little more detail. We've got some nice bulleting, which I think is always helpful for cookbooks. This is a common style. And so this looks really, really great. I love this. And so the one thing, so this is, of course, you probably recognize this as an Amazon description. This was me clicking see more, whatever that, click the link that expands the description. Now, this is a common question that I get. So I'm going to go a little bit into Amazon search algorithms. So hang in with me. I'm going to get real nerdy here. So the part of the description that is what we call above the fold, so it's sort of before that see more, that is always going to be indexed by Amazon. So it's sort of, this text here up at the top is actually less than it used to be just because of the volume of content. So they're not indexing as much as they used to. But it's from our research, it does seem like they are still indexing the first sentence or 2. And so what that means is, and we're going to talk about keywords here in a little while, and this is specific to Amazon, okay? Most other book selling sites are not this sophisticated. But when you have keywords there in that first sentence, in that bolded part, it's going to really give you a number of benefits. So number one, Amazon is looking for that formatting. They're looking to see if you've applied, bolding, italics, whatever it might be. And you actually get there. It's a slight lift in search results because, again, you're delivering a better quality experience to your customer. And so you actually, get a slight lift there. Also, if you are using keywords, again, we're going to come back to this, but that will actually help boost your search results as well, right? So if I'm searching for Instant Pot Cookbook, I'm getting it in the title, I'm also getting it in bold in the description. So that's a signal to Amazon's algorithm to say, okay, this is really a book, this is really an Instant Pot Cookbook. It's telling me that in a few different places, okay? So these are, a few examples of, I think, some really nicely formatted, strong descriptions, and you're getting a lot of bang for your buck, okay, by using this formatting, using those paragraph breaks, etc. Okay, you still with me? It's a lot of information, but it's really great. It's really important. All right, let's talk about series. I'm not going to dwell too much on this, but if you have books in a series, it is really, really important to use it. Right? See, and if I find out, I'm gonna go back and look. If you're in this call, if you're on this webinar and you have books in a series and you're not using the series name, I'm gonna come find you. Okay, so this is super important. It's amazing how many publishers just forget to put it in, or maybe you get the first book, you forget to put the series metadata in, and then you don't go back and add it. So please, if you have titles in a series, use it. And please be sure to put it in the series field in your metadata. If you are wondering what I mean by that, go ahead and put it in the chat. We can come back to that a little bit later, okay? But so what I really want to emphasize here on this slide is to use consistent name and numbering. So this is Deborah Harkness's, it was intended as a trilogy. They added a fourth book. It became the All Souls series. And so they went back and they updated 3 out of the 4 books to say All Souls series. But what would I be confused about here? Well, is it a series or is it a trilogy? Okay, this is book 2. Am I missing a book? Right? So if I'm reading sequentially, I want to make sure I'm getting the next one in the series, but this is creating confusion for me as a reader. Which one is this? Is it book 2? Am I missing one? Right? So by not removing the All Souls trilogy and replacing it with All Souls series, by using the 2 at the same time, you're creating confusion for your reader. Okay, so you want to just be consistent with your series names. All right, now we're going to move on to subjects. So this is, I would say, this and keywords, your description too. I mean, these are some of the most impactful fields that you can focus on, whether you are an editor, an author, you're in production. Okay, this is super, super important. So and there's some new info in here. Okay, so let's talk about this. I recommend that publishers pick 2 to 4 categories. Some of you might think that I've seen 9 plus, and you think that you are just I'm going to reach the broadest audience possible. There's a number of reasons not to do that, not least of which, and you'll see this in the Metadata Essentials book, lots of folks actually only take 3 to 4 subject codes. Some only take 1. Okay, and so that's why you want to do a few things. You want to be as specific as possible. You are much more likely to rank higher in a narrow field than you are to rank in general fiction. Do you know how many general fiction books there are? It's a lot. It's over 1 million. There are quite a few. And so by getting as specific as possible, you're going to reach the most targeted audience. You do have the added benefit. So when you go drill down, okay, when you're looking at your category choices, whether you're studying, the options in your whatever system you use, or whether you are browsing the BISG list of BISAC subject codes, you have a lot of options, but it's a sort of taxonomy. And what I mean by that is it starts general, and then there's a category below that and a category below that. So when you go down to like that 3rd or 4th level, you're still going to be cross-listed in all of the categories that come before it. So it is in your best interest. That's how you're going to be cross-listed in multiple categories, is to actually drill down to the most specific that you can. Okay, and so this is the new information. So Amazon has actually begun delisting titles that have the most general category. They've basically decided it's just not relevant, it's not useful, and these categories are becoming way too crowded. So if you are out there, I'm sorry, I did some BISAC talk here. So that FIC with the 6 zeros, that's a BISAC subject code. Some of you may recognize that, some of you may not, but that's the general fiction category. Do not do that, please. Okay, do not pick those general categories. It could be HIS 000000. Could general history. It could be Any of those subject codes that have the 6 zeros, or it's preceded if you're just using the name by general, do not use those categories. Please get more specific. I promise you can do it. There are lots of choices, but it's going to help you more effectively reach your audience, but it will also keep your book in as many points of distribution as possible. Okay, don't take yourself out of the running by not selecting a specific enough category. So let's look at some examples. So I'm back with my friend Deborah Harkness here. These are 2 books in the same series. And so on the left, so you can see this is book 2. This book seems to be doing much better than book 3. Notice the categories. Okay, this is real life. I just pulled this. On the left, you can see that they were very specific. Vampire thrillers, witch and wizard thrillers, yes, and occult fiction. Note that they're in the top 20 of all 3 of those very specific categories. Now look on the right. Occult fiction, great. Vampire romances, great. But look at that last category, fantasy romance. How, if you had to venture a guess, would you say that there are a lot of fantasy romance titles at Amazon? That feels mighty broad to me, especially, thinking about Kindle Direct, about all of the self-published authors that are likely choosing that genre. Too broad. And look, they're doing poorly in it, right? There's just too many choices. And I would argue that perhaps this particular book, because they did not choose the same categories, may not have gotten as much visibility. Could also be that series issue. That was a pretty big one. Okay, so this is an actual example where, if you have titles in a series, you can be consistent with your subject categories also. You don't have to be, but again, this is where choosing the most specific is going to bring some benefit. Okay, keywords. So we're running short on time, so I will try to move quickly through this. But so keywords, I added off page in the title here because these are not visible to the consumer. Okay, this is content you're putting in your metadata that is not visible to your reader, but is being used behind the scenes to power search. Again, it's about anticipating demand. What will they be typing into that search box? And the great news is that it's digital. Okay, you can try it before you use it. And if you don't succeed at first, you can iterate. You can always update your keywords. You can update them every week. You can update them every month. A little time consuming, okay, depending on how big your list is, but you can update them at any time if you don't feel like you're getting that conversion on those search terms, okay? And remember, a keyword is not just a word. It can be a whole phrase. So let's get into some specifics. So these were just some keywords that I selected. This is not the actual metadata from the publisher, but these are some phrases that you might use for the step-by-step Instant Pot cookbook. Okay, Instant Pot cookbook for 2, family meals, Instapot. Okay, Pressure Luck Cooking, right? This is his YouTube channel, his website. And so these are some phrases. Now, you'll note that I'm not putting Instant Pot, Instant Pot, Instant Pot at the beginning of every phrase. You can think of keywords as like a block of content. And basically, and when we talk about keywords, we're really talking about Amazon. Okay, this is the website that uses keywords most of all. So these can be used in sort of permutation with one another. So Instant Pot vegetarian book, even though I haven't put that specific phrase separated by semicolons, nowadays Amazon is kind of pulling from this as an entire block. So if someone is typing in Instant Pot vegetarian book, this title is likely to come up in search, competing against other titles that have that same keyword phrase. Let's look at another title here. This is Trout Bum from Simon & Schuster. And so again, here are some keywords: modern fly fishing memoir, humor essays collection, outdoor adventure, Colorado, nature writing. Okay, so some of these are broader than just kind of book searches, right? So I might be, maybe I'm looking for fishing gear, at Amazon. Maybe I'm looking for maybe I'm a beginner fisherman looking for some gear, and this book comes up in my search results. I wasn't necessarily looking for a book, but maybe fishing is in my family and this is a book that appeals to me, right? So I'm sort of branching out in terms of search results. So some takeaways, we didn't spend a ton of time on keywords today, but a few things I'd love to leave you with. I saw Steve posted a great article in the chat. Thank you, Steve. So you can check that out. I also really like keywordtool.io. This is a free, um, you get a little more benefit with a paid subscription, but you can kind of get a sense of if you type in a keyword phrase, you can see what additional search terms might be added to it. Okay, but really the best way, especially if you're focused on Amazon for conversion, you can type in some search terms to Amazon and see what comes up. And you can do that in the all category. You can also filter down to books to get some more kind of specific intel. So play around, do your research. And remember that you can always, update, experiment, etc. All right. All right, we're almost wrapped up here. A couple last takeaways. So quality over quantity. This is the Metadata Essentials checklist from page 17 of the book. It is, I think, really handy. I've been told people, rip it out and put it by their computer. Take a look at this because it's going to give you some of the same tips that we've covered today. Some very, very practical insight, on how to craft your metadata. Okay, and it is quality over quantity. And my friend Ron Popeil, set it and forget it, which does not apply to metadata. Okay, it's a living thing. It's an ongoing conversation with your prospective readers. And so, just as we saw in some of these examples, whether it was the Deborah Harkness series, where, they weren't going back and updating, whether it's your keywords, right? You want to update, experiment as you go, whether it's your description, maybe, or your contributor bio, maybe congratulations, you've won some awards and you want to add that into your description, put that in there. That's relevant. Your readers love to see it. And, you can go in and update and add. All right. Well, that time flew by. I hope you all are coming away with some specific takeaways on metadata, that you have some very practical, actions that you can take back. I'm sure you're all, eager to get back and get editing on your metadata. But before we do that, we've got some time for some questions, and I have seen a bunch of questions come in, and I think Lauren is going to come back and join us. Hey, Lauren.
Hi there. Thank you so much, Margaret. That was such a great presentation. I certainly learned a few things. So, and we do have quite a few questions. Keep them coming, you guys. We have about 10 minutes. And before we jump into these, just one that a lot of people have been asking is, how do I get the ebook? That was in your original Eventbrite confirmation email. You'll see a link at the very bottom. And if you have any trouble getting it or downloading it, just email reservations@publishersroundtable.com and we'll help you guys out. So thank you again, Margaret, for offering that to us. That was such a generous thing. And I know our membership will really get a lot of use out of it. All right, so first question I have is, do you have any tips or ideas on empowering metadata stakeholders to see their metadata as an active living thing to be maintained instead of something that is entered and then forgotten?
Okay, I am with you in spirit. That's a tricky one. I mean, I think we've really done ourselves a disservice as an industry by making the metadata conversation all about tech. And it's true, it was a challenge to figure out how to get that information into the supply chain, 10, even 5 years ago, it was still a challenge. But at this point, um, the methods of delivering it have become really ubiquitous. And so I think making the conversation about marketing, and making it about reaching readers, my friend who asked this question, I'm not sure if you work for, if you're on your own, if you work for a larger publishing house, if you do work somewhere where you have a marketing team, or maybe you're on the marketing team, create a coalition of people that are really focused on sales, on reaching readers. I think the more you can attach dollar signs to it, the more executive level buy-in you're going to get. But I will tell you from my own experience, I mean, when I joined Ingram, I was in a role where I was a director of metadata, and like just the title itself, you could just see like, the tears of boredom, like just the word metadata being uttered. But I really worked hard, and we were able to publish our book because I made it about reaching the reader. And it's about marketing. It's not about data. It's not about Onyx. No offense. I love Onyx. It's very important. But it's not about programming. It's not about tech. It is about that direct connection with your readers. And I have my email up here. So whoever you are who asked this question, if you want to continue the conversation, I would love to chat more with you about that. Thank you.
All right, and we have a few Amazon and kind of BISAC related questions. So I'm going to jump into those. Jenna's wondering, with category ranks on Amazon, is it really all based on BISAC decisions? And she says she thinks that with Amazon, books make ranking categories based on BISACs and keywords. And what is correct?
Yeah, that's a great, thank you, Jenna. It's true. So it is BISACs and keywords, in particular with some of the travel genres. So there are BISAC regional codes. I didn't get into that today, but there are actually more specific categories for locations, and keywords, yes, are used in sort of coupling there. And so yes, keywords do play a factor. There is some information in the Amazon KDP kind of frequently asked questions section online. We also have, I think, some detail in the book on with a little bit more information about how that's used. But yes, specific to Amazon, that's how they achieve their categories. For the rest of the industry, at least in the US, it is very much driven by BISAC, but Amazon is unique. You're right, Jenna, in that they create what they call those browse nodes, which are BISACs, keywords, and also BISAC regional codes pulled together. Good question.
And we have another keyword question too from Nancy. In choosing keywords, if you use an adjective in front of a general term, but your book would also fit with the general term, do you need to put both versions, for example, fast healthcare accounting versus healthcare accounting?
Great question, Nancy. Fast healthcare accounting will give you everything you need. It's got healthcare accounting in there, and you can use the fast healthcare accounting. So be more specific there, because that keyword phrase is included in the more specific. You're good to go. You're covered on both fronts.
And we have another one. Can descriptions generally differ between print and online, specifically thinking about the advice of removing links from author bios from online settings, which makes sense for the reasons you mentioned, but also seems like a good thing to include in a book itself?
Yeah, thank you. That is a great question. So I recommend that publishers create what I call the selling bio. But for example, what you're using for Goodreads, right, which is a platform specifically designed to engage your readers with authors, should be totally different. In that setting, absolutely, all the links, all of the ancillary content, because that's about building your author's brand. They're not buying a book on Goodreads. But when it comes to that product detail page, specifically online, because we all know, we've all lived through it, especially in 2020, there are so many online distractions, right? So when it comes to that online product detail page, I say no links, no distractions, because you want to keep them on that journey.
All right, and then we have this one from Paul. On the topic of updating metadata, such as keywords, how frequently is this data pushed out? So say if I update a KDP listing, the Amazon data is updated immediately, but if I'm updating on Ingram Spark, when does it make it out to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, et cetera?
Oh, great question. Okay, so it depends, but I happen to know a thing or two about Ingram Spark. Thank you, Ingram. So yes, so Ingram Spark, so we update actually every night coming from Lightning Source out into the industry. So changes that are made in Ingram Spark, generally push out to Amazon the next day. And I would say if your metadata, any metadata coming to Ingram when it comes to Amazon, we are updating Amazon as frequently as every 4 hours. So that is going out quite frequently. But for everyone else, so in general, Amazon is by far on the most frequent turn. Barnes and Noble is every week. Bookshop.org is every week. And we have some stragglers, notably. So people that take a long time, and I love you all. I love all my children equally, all my retail children. But I will say Indigo up in Canada chapters tends to take, there can be up to like a 2-week lag there. Also Nielsen, so the UK catalog updates, just because of the volume of data that they have to process tends to take a little while. But when it comes to Amazon, I mean, in general, you should see your updates stick within about 48 hours.
All right. And another author bio question from Carol. Does an author's bio on Amazon need to be consistent, or can it differ by book? And she's wondering about authors who work with multiple publishers, as many do.
Yeah. Thank you, Carol. So I actually, I'll give you the Margaret Harrison opinion. I actually really like it to be different. And I actually love to see that by title. What I hate is when I go to the ebook or the hardcover or the different formats of the same book and it's a different bio, that I don't care for. But as long as you're consistent by title, I think it's really nice actually to make some changes in particular. And I think it's a great question, Carol. If you're sort of, you know, marketing to a specific audience for each book, then I would say definitely, come up with a different bio. A lot of publishers don't think about that, right? You're kind of in a hurry and you're just pulling from what you already have. But I think it's great to be to update that for each book. Thanks for the question.
All right, and I think we're on to our last question here. These are some really great questions coming in. Thank you, everybody. It's nice to get into the weeds on some of this. So this is from Shayna. You mentioned how the title contributor in the metadata needs to match what's on the cover exactly. So does this mean Amazon or Barnes & Noble systems can actually read the text on the cover from the cover image? We have a handful of children's books that have a subtitle, which is included in metadata, but not on the cover. Generally, that's on the back cover. Could be causing problems for discoverability.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Shayna. So no retailer at this moment is scanning data from the cover. The reason why we advocate for consistency is you would be surprised at how many how many complaints you can get from customers who wonder if they're getting the right book. It's really about that reader's experience, just ensuring that they're getting the product that they thought they were getting. It also helps in terms of discoverability broadly out there in the interwebs, to make sure that you're linking all the same that you're sort of creating the largest online presence that you can. So I would say, Shayna, that the most important thing is to be consistent. So I wouldn't fret too much about, if you have your subtitle on the back cover and it's not on the front cover, that's perfectly fine. I would say just be consistent if you're using that title and subtitle in all of your metadata. Just make sure you're sending it out consistently to everyone. Thank you.
All right, and thank you, Margaret. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. And again, if you have any issues downloading the ebook, please contact us at reservations@publishersroundtable.org. .com won't get you anywhere. And we look forward to seeing you all in May. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you.